Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkie with StartUpTrading.com. It is 5 minutes till 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, September 4th. So, looking back at yesterday's session, right, it was just a liquidation day, a diver down day, I think is what we named it. I can't remember. Steve, if you're out there, you can correct me. But we basically, for all the indexes, and I always say that when all the indexes act exactly the same, that's when the best opportunities are for us as day traders. And once you got, shortly after the opening bell here yesterday, it was just stuck between the -1 and the -2 standard deviation of the VWAP and just, ripped straight down without any real serious reversion for the bulls, the other side. But where did that take us to as we did this? You can see that we went right down to floor trader S4B, which happened to have a some old single prints sitting there, and they were cleansed. The same for the ES. It went down to S4A, and you had single prints cleansed. And notice that as that happened going into the bell, as soon as that was hit, they were just traded through by a couple of ticks. You did get a pretty good dead cat bounce, which as we know from what we watch all the time, right? If we were to, you know, go through these lows between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock after the bell for a lot of these indexes, that is would have been a clearer sign of capitulation, right? And maybe may entice us to get into it. So I always ask when we have a sell-off like this, is it one and done, three and done, five and done? But my first question is always is just going to be a one and done? We shall find out. Regardless, you have to keep in mind that the biggest up days are usually followed, uh, preceded by the bigger down days. So it doesn't mean that we're going to, rip up through yesterday's highs and take out Friday's bell high today. But you have to be aware that that is a possible scenario that is on the table. It's, you know, I would probably only give it a 15% chance, maybe even only 10, but you have to understand that that is definitely has potential to happen today. But what we will be watching in the meantime is, what did that do to structure yesterday? We had, two sets of single prints. Uh, well, let's back it up. For every single index, we had the excess in period A, right? That 9:30 to 10 o'clock bar, we had excess in it. So these are our markers where, going forward for even if it, later on this week, we'll leave these markers here. Uh, but getting back over there, I would be very cautious with shorts. You trade back over it, you get back under it. That's a different story, as I always say. But before we can get there, and you always have to ask yourself, uh, what should happen, right? What is expected from the market after a day like yesterday? So we had two sets of single prints for the Russell, we had two sets for the Dow, we had three sets. Uh, for the ES, and we had four sets uh, for the NASDAQ. So normally when you have four or more sets, that top set will not be traded for at least a week, right? So you've got, a whole week that, that should not be crossed over and traded above. If it is, that tells you that, this whole down move uh, at the very least was just the new bottom of the range. That would be for the Bears. Their hope that you're just settling in a new consolidation range. But for the Bulls, it means that if you trade above there, that that could have been just all the flush that they needed. So we will get into more of that in a second. So looking at we were overbought on our trend bias, you know, quite a bit since we had that, move up, and we've been, going sideways. So as we got to the top of the range, we were overbought. As we got near the bottom of the range, we were still kind of overbought. So that kind of flushed some of that money out. What we have on the deck today, if you trade Tesla, you have to be aware of that the awards vehicle sales are going to be reported today. Uh, we have Bank of Canada that's coming out at 9:45 with a press conference at 10:30. That usually is a non-event, but you should note it since a lot of these central banks now are starting to cut. If you trade crude oil, uh, Canada, that's their biggest commodity, right? That's where they make their money up north, and that will affect the price of crude oil, this announcement, probably. So it won't affect us probably in equities unless, they do something really off the wall. It's hard for them to affect the U.S. equity market. They're not Europe, but it can affect crude oil. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, because of the holiday on Monday, there will be no 10:30 report today for crude oil. That'll be tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Uh, so that will not be happening at the same time as this Bank of Canada press conference. So we're going to have jolts at 10 o'clock. This can be a major event. So it's usually either a snoozer or it just really rocks the market one way or the other. So my advice to you is just to be flat, when this announcement comes out, re-engage the market after this comes out, and assume that it's going to be a volatility event. And if it's not, no harm, right? You can always just get back in. There's always another trade later, but uh, high likelihood that both stops are going to be taken. The anyone who has a near-term position, either long or short, they're probably going to get their stop run when this report comes out at 10, within probably 3.5 minutes. Uh, that would be the standard to do. So looking at earnings, nothing really going on as far as I'm concerned that is going to really froth the markets. And then after today's jolts, there's really nothing going on. You got a couple minor reports tomorrow, but it's non-farm payroll on Friday, and we'll just have to see where we go from there. So looking at positioning, and the title of my video today is QQQ uh, 362. So there are over 22,000 contracts that are calls on 462 today, and you can see where that looks for the week, and you can see the biggest uh, for the week right now is 460. So yesterday the Qs closed at 461.81. And they're currently trading 459.41 after being down to 457.60 in the overnight. So, we were basically, right in this area. So we're getting that reversion to the mean coming into the bell. We're, right below this 460. That's going to be your first marker. So we could get some churning in the early morning between 460 and 462. So that would be currently the NQ is trading 18,904. So looking up to where 462 would be, that would be about 110 points higher than we're currently trading. So that would be, uh, right around that, 19,000, or I'm sorry, that would be right around, yeah, 19,000, a little over 19,000 is really what you're looking at is where that would be. And when I send out my update in the morning for equity profiles, I'll give it. But if you're not in equity profiles, you can always just look at the cues and just remember that uh, that should be the point of contention today, this 462. It should be a wall on a first touch. If you get over it, as always, and you're just, consolidating under, within a few strikes of that, if you fall back under it in the afternoon, it should be a quick 80 points down to this 460, and then we'll have to watch it and see what the VIX is doing to see if you get any follow through even lower than that. And it's the same thing if we start off the day down, we could easily ram up near this 462 uh, towards the close. It doesn't mean we're going to stay there. Don't hold on to the very last second of the trading day for it, but keep in mind that this is going to be a draw, right? And it's going to be a point of frustration for traders more than likely. Looking at the SPY, there's really not a lot to glean from the SPY. We got 560 and 561 out there. If we look at where the SPY closed yesterday, it closed at 552. We're currently trading 550.40. So this would be, 100 ES handles higher if we hit this, but probably more doable would be this first set of resistance would be 555. So I would say 554, 50 to 555. You should on a first test up there, we'll see what happens. That would be 50 points higher. Uh, Basically, if we get up there 45 points or so at this point in time. To the downside, there's really not a lot to hang your head on other than maybe 445. But you can see for the week, there's not really the SPY isn't really going to help us out, and we're unlikely to get down here to 505. So I don't think that's really on the table. Looking at the cash market, the cash closed at 55.29 yesterday, basically. Futures are down 16, so that would make it right around 55.13 is where we're trading right now. Uh, so, right here between this 55.10 and this 55.15 strike, you can see that for the week there's a smidgen on 55.15. And then you got 5,500. But the real floor for the week is probably 5,400. So that would be 110 points lower than we are now. If we end up hitting that floor for the week, with some stops, along the way. But for today, you probably contend with 54.90 to 54.85. In a perfect scenario, this would be the range that you would trade today would be 54.90, 54.85 as the floor with a pivot at 55.30, which we haven't even hit yet. And then the top end of the range would be 55.65 to 55.70. Keep in mind there's about a 12-point offset between the cash and the futures. So the futures are trading 12 points above the cash basically at this point in time. I think we beat up positioning to death. So let's look at where we're at. So the point of control yesterday is 55.4375 for the ES, and we can easily rally up to what would be Thursday's low. And I'm going to take off the extended session. So back to Thursday's low would be 55.77 half. Any up move, if you can get across this top of this high volume node that's at 55.55 on the futures, uh, and that would be about 31 points higher than we're trading right now. Uh, we'll have to see. That's where your resistance should start going in. This is where traders are trapped above from that 10 11 day consolidation. Then we'll just have to see what should happen for the bears, though, if they're going to really take control, right? They should be able to not trade this point of control today. We should stay below this point of control, not even touch it, and we should go down and we should hit the next one below that was untested, just going back to August 14th uh, at 54.68, and then we would have to see what happens from there. So it's all fair value. We don't have to trade below yesterday's low and keep going. But I think what I'm going to really watch is if we can't trade 68, but we stop basically around this session high from the 14th, which is 54.88, let's call it. So, right around here, and you can see where this previous low consolidation was as well. That would frustrate some traders if that was ended up being around the floor. That's going to be, right at this 55.02, 55.03 level. Uh, Looking at, where we are on the one time framing and the balance zones, Uh, we have a new upper pivot that would be yesterday's high, and you can see those highs were basically from the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, uh, not the 30th, but then also yesterday's session. And then where could it lead to? The last pivot that we have below is basically 17,951. Uh, you know, that's 800 points, 900 points lower than we are right now. That is still on the table. We have a couple of places that we'd have to go through first to get there, but we've been talking about this, you know, top of the range, bottom of the range, and so we'll have to just see what happens. You know, we're not the likelihood that we take out yesterday's bell high is very small, right? So at the very least, we should get some consolidation. And I would think just by looking at, this form of technical analysis that 55.75, which would be about 50 points higher than we're currently trading, should be about the top end for the ES today, with 65 to 75 being, where you would thin out. And for the NASDAQ, you're probably looking at, 19,085 to 19,234 would be your, upper end. And to the downside, there's, I'm still going to be paying attention to these old levels, this 18,725 and 18,486. I think it would be very difficult for the ES to even get down to 54.32 half today, but that is the bottom of this consolidation that dates back between 725 and basically August 1st. So looking at the overnight, 34 and a quarter points is, really where we're at right now. And we're right in value area low. We have not, went positive, right? We've just been sitting here on this spike uh, that started off basically at 8:30 last night. For the majority of the evening after 8:30 last night, we've just been inside of that, only incremental lower lows and haven't taken off the top of that 8:30 candle from last night. And if we look at all the indexes, that poor structure. So, think about where we are for the NASDAQ. Uh, you're even going positive, which we're down 112 points right now. That doesn't even get us to value area low for yesterday. Value area low is above that, and then you got these single prints. So the first real resistance, I think, if you can go positive, would be right around 19,104 between these single prints. Uh, and that's if you can even get in there. And that's right where value area, the value area starts right around 19,125. Uh, Looking at where we are, we're below value, we're in the value area low zone, we're below yesterday's low, and we're uh, below yesterday's low for the Russell. So you know weak. But if you look at what's happened overnight so far, um, it's probably just average volume, maybe just a smidgen over average volume, but not much, if at all. Uh, and the Bears really haven't got any follow through. I thought that maybe Europe would push this lower once they got out, but you can see that it's been a very controlled, very squatty overnight session, which means that likely there will be a short squeeze up into these single prints, and we'll have to watch those positioning numbers and see if that 462 on the Qs comes into play or not today. Uh, but that's how it's setting up. And keep in mind, if we do get that flush first, still getting above where that 830 print was, and you should probably mark that off on your chart. It looks like basically the all of the indexes had that last night. So if you look at the 830 open from last night, that would be the marker, I think, for that the bulls need to overcome. I think it's going to be a little bit two-sided between there and the overnight low, and then we see if we get anything more than a look below. And keep in mind that for yesterday, right, as we're looking, uh, this is a look below. Now we have to see if it's a look below and go or a look below and fail. So a failure would be a close above 55.66 today and a close above 19,234, and that will get us back up to the top of the range before the end of the week, more than likely, if we close there. I hope this helps. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.